Well, hello and welcome to Tea Talk. I'm so glad to see you today. It's a beautiful day, and we had our first day of fall, and I'm feeling it. You can see I've got my fall colors there, my little fall dress on, because I love fall. I love it because it's cool, and we have had so much hot weather, so we're glad for a change. I say a shift in the weather has come. And so I'm happy that another thing I love about fall is that we get a chance to do some of my favorite holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we get to go to the theater. So today I'm going to be talking about the theater and another part of the arts with a young lady that I've come to know. And we've been kind of following her and waiting for this big production that she has that she's going to be presenting, and she's going to tell us all about it. So, what I want you to do, if you've got that little young girl who wants to grow up and be in the theater, you need to have her on. So go get your little girls and have them come and watch with you. If they have any questions, they can put them in the chat room and we'll be glad to answer them for them. They can learn some things so they'll know the path on how to get to where this young lady is. And also, just if you got those activities that you're going to be doing this fall, you want to go to the theater with some friends, do something wonderful, you need to get on so that you can hear all about this wonderful production that's coming up that we are definitely going to see. So I have with me a young lady here, Miss Deborah Mouton, and she's a Deborah Deep Mouton. She'll tell you all about that in a minute, but I want to just help you to help me welcome her to Tea Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what does that DEEP stand for?
Yeah, it means determined to excel in everything promised. I think that this world has a lot of ways that they measure success, and a lot of them didn't line up with why I feel like God put me on this earth. And so for me, it's kind of an anchor at the center of my name to remind me that the things that I'm doing in this world and on this earth are God-centered, are God-ordained, have purpose in them, and have to move beyond like our superficial measurements of success.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to have to really, when I look at it again, so it's determined to excel
And everything promised.
in everything promised, determined to excel in everything promised. And I love it that I know you have a faith foundation, and I know your family has raised you up in the church. And before we get to go any further, we want to give a shout out to your mom.
Hey,
You want to
Mom.
do that?
Hey, Mom.
And for those of y'all that don't know, her mom is Pat Wiggins, and she's a member at First Met, and her husband, um, who just passed away here recently, a couple of months ago. So we're just missing him so much too. Reverend Carl Wiggins, we just miss him so much. A wonderful, wonderful minister and pastor, and so she is very well grounded in the Word of God. And I want to just, it's always good to give a shout out to your parents because they trained you up the way, and everything you have now is because of some things that they put in your life so that you could get more.
For
And
sure.
so we definitely wanted to recognize your mom and your dad before we get started. Now, I want to talk about, well, first of all, let's go ahead and talk about your background. Okay. You are a writer. Tell us about who you are as
Yeah, I
a,
consider myself a multi-hyphenate literary artist, which I know is a mouthful for most people, but it just means that if the medium is text, I'll do it, right? So I do everything from writing books, poems, to plays and opera, to visual poems, to screenplays, anything that you're going to use the storytelling, that's kind of my jam.
wow. So do you create everything yourself, or do people give you ideas and you just say, I can go with that. I can write something for you. Are you writing? Does that work?
Yeah, I usually do a lot more commissioned work, which is like someone wants an idea and they kind of want to do it. And I do it occasionally, usually for organizations or for individuals who want to pay me to do something that's really specific. A lot of the work that I'm doing now, though, is definitely more individual driven. So I'll have an idea and spend some time, whether it's a few weeks, few days, to a few years, like this production, developing that idea out, researching and doing everything I need to do to create it. Mhm.
Wow. So did you go to school for this, or how did this come about when you were little? Is this what you wanted to be? You ask a little kindergartners, what do you want to be? And they say, I want to be Batman. I want to be princess, whatever. So what were your dreams and aspirations as a child growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in an artistic household. My mother sang and played piano. My dad played classical violin. My brother was an actor. My family is all into the arts and always has been. So I knew I wanted to be in the arts. I actually used to choreograph gospel dance and mime. I've done kind of a little bit of everything all over the place. And I think the arts has always just been a landing place for me. But my mom says that at an early age, where like other kids were carrying stuffed animals, I was carrying a spiral notebook, this idea that like I was always a writer, whether it was good or not, that's questionable. But that I always had an idea and was kind of doodling or jotting things down. And I think just over the years, that place of play became more comfortable. And I just kind of really dove into having it and making it my own space.
Wow. So, what advice could you give, or what kind of tidbit would you give to a mother who they see this child that wants to write or draw, or that's kind of different? They don't want to do the traditional, whatever it is they most kids are doing. What do you say to a mother, or even to the little girl or boy that's thinking in those veins, about their future, what they can do to move forward or to encourage that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not weird. You're just unique, right? If everyone did what you did, you wouldn't be special. And so I think just really leaning into like all the ways that God made you special. My kids are very literate and very literary. My kids will stay up to really, really dumb hours of the night reading books. That's their thing. They love telling stories. They love building, little mini sets. They are their own creatives. And so for me as a mom, whether it's my medium or my husband, who's a visual artist medium, right? We love to be able to nurture wherever they're entering the space of play and creativity and to support that. And so I constantly tell my daughter, if you want to be an underwater basket weaver, which is something my dad used to say to me, if you want to be an underwater basket weaver, I will be underwater cheering for you. It doesn't matter how you do it as long as you do it well. And so I think that that's, no, the thing is, if you're going to do it well, do it all in, all out, and trust that your gift will make room for you.
Yeah, I think that's really great what you said for parents too, to just support them. But I think another thing that I feel that parents need to do is to tap into the creativity of children, because now they're on the TV, they're on the Wi-Fi, they're just kind of into a thing, but their creative mindset of them by themselves creating and producing, seems to be lacking. Do you see that could be, something that could keep them from obtaining or finding their creativity with all of the computer games and things? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of different ways to find creativity. For my kids, my daughter loves to code. She loves science. She loves engineering and gaming. And so instead of pushing her away from that, we found programs that allowed her to design games, right? And so then she can use those skills, the same creative skills, but in a way that uses uses the technology as well. I just think you have to be creative, as creative as a child is, you have to be creative in meeting them there to support whatever that need is. And there's times where they just want to sit and read a book. There's times when they want to create and install a museum in our home, which we know we do have museum space in our home where our kids can exhibit their artwork. And we've taught them how to do like curate an exhibit and think about how long it stays up in the house. And you know what I mean? Like, so we've really tried to feed in as much as we can into really like nurturing whatever it is that they want to do, and reassuring them that there's no right pathway and that they may change their minds a million times. We don't ask questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because, hey, 30-year-olds don't know what they want to be, right?
I mean, how many times have we changed it over the years?
Exactly.
I thought I was going to be a nurse like my mom, and I found out I don't like dissecting dead things. I don't like the smell formaldehyde. I don't like all that stuff you have to do to become an RN like she was. And I just saw the white thing and helping people and da da da. But you got to learn all these other classes that I was not good in science, and so yeah, it can change. But I like the part that you said though, the creativeness, and I think that might be a good book for you to write. I saw a book there of helping parents to take it to the next level. Like you said, instead of playing on the computer, learn how to program a computer, you know, learn how to put a museum in on something you're interested in, or an author's corner. I like that. Well, listen, let's talk about now. So did you go to school for this, or this was just something that you just kind of fell into? How did you get into become this artist that you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a bachelor's in English. I also have a bachelor's in African American Studies from the University of Michigan. I
Okay.
have a master's degree in education. So I actually was a teacher for a long time.
Okay.
And I still really love being in educational spaces. I don't like the administrative part of it, but I do like the learning and sharing knowledge part of it. So that's, I think, at the center of what I do. But more than anything, it was just doing the work, right? Like I think a lot of times, and this is not to diminish, MFA programs or anything like that, because those are really great places for a lot of people. But for me, I've learned more doing the art than I did trying to find where to study to do the art, right? So in high school, I started doing poetry slams and really fell in love with being on stage and writing and performing my work at talent shows and local community things in church, right? Definitely was a space for me. And then as I grew and went to college, I found a national, it's called CUPSES, which is the College Undergraduate Poetry Slam Invitational. So it's the national level poetry slam organization, and was able to join a national team on my campus and represent at a national level, and just really fell in love with the community that was around me and what I was doing. So when I moved to Houston, I wanted to find that same thing. And Houston has a really thick and hardy poetry community. So I was able to plug in there and just continue to grow. And the more that I did, the more things I thought to do, and the more I just started to stretch and make connections. And so by the time I became poet laureate of the city, I think that I was really in a good place to pivot and kind of do all the things that I dreamed about.
Wonderful. Well, what you just said to me was it takes time. It's a process. It's getting connected at the local levels and the talent shows and all of those things before you jump to where you are,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And when you say poet laureate, what does that mean?
So I served as the ambassador of poetry for the city of Houston for 2 years. In
Okay.
that time, I created community programs. So I created a writing series for women on mental health. I created a writing series for young writers where we visited local community libraries and worked with them to refine their craft. And then I created a music video, for lack of a better word, but it basically was a series of 36 artists who were all writing poems and presenting those poems in the streets in their neighborhoods that celebrated the diversity of Houston. And so those were kind of the projects I did, along with some other things that popped up that I didn't expect, like a BBC World News poem for after Hurricane Harvey when we were kind of rebanding here in Houston. And so just really figuring out how I could leverage my space in the city position to gain access and resources for people to enter into literacy and into poetry.
Wonderful. Well, listen, that is really great. You did a great job of letting us know who you are and getting to know you personally. Now, let's look at your work, what's coming up that I'm really, really excited about to talk about. You have a production that's coming up that, why don't you tell us, it's called Plum Sugar. And you can just kind of tell us, how did you get that name? What is Plum Sugar all about?
Yeah, Plum Sugar is subtitled The Rise of Lauren Anderson. So it centers on the life and legacy of Lauren Anderson, the first Black principal ballerina of the Houston Ballet and of a major ballet company. I say we, but it's just me writing it, right? Just dive into creating a tapestry where we're able to talk to her one-on-one, and as she talks, her memories play out in dance. So it really is a collaboration between myself, Harrison Guy of Urban Soul, Stanton Welch of the Houston Ballet, Ebony Bell Darcy, who's my co-director, kind of coming together to the place and deciding how do we mix a lot of mediums, how do we mix genres and tell you this really rich and inviting story.
Oh my goodness. So Plum Sugar, how did you come up with that name?
Yeah. So Plum Sugar was first off started thinking about the Sugar Plum Fairy, which is the role that Lauren embodied and sought to embody probably more than every other role in ballet.
Right.
It's the one role she danced for her entire career. So one of her first roles was the Sugar Plum Fairy, and the last role that she danced before she retired was the Sugar Plum Fairy. So it's kind of been the thing that's seen her through this whole time. And then layered on top of that, right, is this other thing that while she's this really great ballerina, this world-class ballerina, there's also an identity in her of being a Black woman that often gets overshadowed. And so we wanted to really create something, a title that carried both the classical ballet world with it as well as Black culture, right? We think of grandmothers wanting to give you sugar, right? And
Yeah.
come here, sugar, right? Like it's like
Give me some
endearing
sugar. I
feeling.
tell my grandbaby, that's why I say, give me some sugar. That's it. I didn't think about
Yeah.
it like that, but that's what I always tell, give me some sugar.
Yeah, so it's that very like Southern Black cultural identity that we immediately recognize as being a place of comfort and a place of home and a place of belonging, which are all things that I think Lauren was really seeking to find. And so the story we decided should center on a name that does both things.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Well, I want to go back just a little bit, and of course, I don't want to get into the play so much, but um, you said something a minute ago that just kind of just like, oh wow, this is so true. When we're talking about ballerinas, and we talk about a Black ballerina, I remember when she first when I went to see her, and of course my cousin actually met her and got an autograph from her because she was doing her a play in her community in Plano. And some kind of way they got together and she got to talk to her, take a picture with her. But I went to see her on stage, and I went because I've seen, the production many times, but to have a Black ballerina have this particular title and position, tell us what does that mean, um, from your perspective when you're looking at, I'm doing this about the first Black ballerina. And did you say that even in Houston and in the nation?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, there was something about representation that's always important. There's a lot of campaigns right now. They're like, if you could see her, you could be her, and those kind of things of saying that representation really does give permission for people to exist in spaces where they don't. And I think very much so Lauren does that. I also think though that there's this whole other layer of who she is as an artist who was able to push through everyone telling her no over and over and over again, right? Who
Mhm.
pushed through addiction, who pushed through domestic violence, who pushed through these things that would level and take out so many people and have, right? To find herself on the other end as this whole human, right? Not broken, not damaged, but made fully whole in her truth and being able to stand in spaces of community and provide resources for other people to find their way there as well. And so, like, as much as I wanted to center on this woman as a Black ballerina, as this barrier breaker, right? As this history
Right,
maker, I
right.
also really found it was important to show that, like, especially Black women can go through the hardest things and still come out okay,
Mhm.
right? And we see a lot of depictions in Hollywood where at the end of the story we're half broken and run over and run down, can't get our lives quite right, right? Um, but that's
Right.
not Lauren. That's not what Lauren and her story has taught me. It's taught me that there's no low that you can't come back from. And I
Okay.
think that is a universal message that everyone needs to hear.
Wow, there's no low you can't come back from. So in your production, do you talk about her life and her struggles? And so are there going to be some things in there that we will be shocked to know that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Lauren likes to say everybody loves a train wreck. You got to give them the train wreck before we can give them the pretty parts, So
Okay. Well,
for
that's what
sure.
I wanted to know because I was thinking, okay, what can we expect when we come? Are we going to see a depiction of the actual ballet or whatever? But no, you're saying it's more than that, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. The way that I constructed the show really was very similar to the way that I went about coming into the show, which is interviewing Lauren for multiple hours and really kind of watching her defenses fall over the course of 2 years, right? Because
Mhm.
everyone's not going to be willing to share their secrets on day one.
Right,
And I
right.
respect it. And so it really was for us saying, how do we replicate the experience of me getting to know this legend so closely and so intimately, for the audience, so where they feel like they get to know Lauren in ways that they would have never imagined being able to have access to.
Wow. And we need to know the good and the bad because we make it look so easy up there on stage, even in the role that I play at my church, people are like, oh, it's not that easy. There's a whole different side of the struggle and the what it takes. to do what you do that people have no idea. They just see the final product. So Lauren is she's still in Houston and she's married. I think you said she's married. And
Yeah.
so she has her own life. And so did you say that it took you 2 years of interviewing her?
Yeah, so we did interviews for about 2 years. The pandemic helped a little bit with that because we couldn't be together, right? So we would get on Zoom and just stay on for an hour or two and record it, and I would be able to take notes from there and make, my next set of questions. I had really great documentation from there. And so it was a lot of interviewing and getting to know and building relationship. I consider that my big sister now because we've gotten
Yeah.
really, really close. And then the last year, so it's been a total of a 3-year process. The last year has really been refining the script. Lauren has been a great collaborator in that I can write a draft and send it to her and say, like, did I get it right? And she's
Uh-huh.
like, no, we need to fix this. Or yeah, absolutely. And you said it better than I would have got. I could have said it. I think it's been a back and forth till we found the right balance where she was able to say what she needed to say without feeling like she was pushed to say things that she didn't feel comfortable saying.
That's good. And that so that partnership that you all, that relationship that you all developed took time.
Yeah.
And you definitely want to get it right for the person that it does say what it is that actually happened, that they agree with it. So so has she seen it already, or is she coming to the first show or
Yeah, so we did a workshop of the piece in January, which
uh-huh.
is just a very, not staged as well, but kind of read through version. And Lauren was there for that, and there was a standing ovation at the end of it. It was really just a wonderful and magical night. And then since then, she's been to a few rehearsals, but I purposely kick her out. I tell her she can't be there. We've had talks where I'm like, no, no, no. um, so, and her son plays in the ensemble band that did all the music. So, he was like, Mom, you can't know anything. We've all been really good at just keeping her in the dark over in a corner somewhere, told her to just hang out. Um,
Yeah.
so we have a date in mind that is prior to the beginning or prior to the opening where she's going to be able to come in and see it and give us feedback and things of that nature, because we do want to make sure once it's open to the public that we get it right.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and give some information about it, about where is it going to be shown and the dates and so forth. How can we get tickets? Give us that information.
Yeah, so previews for Plum Sugar start October 7th through the 9th. And for those who don't know what previews are, they're like an open rehearsal. The piece runs pretty much like it will run on stage, but nothing is for sure. So we can change anything we want to during the preview. So it may be a different show if you see it later on. And
Right.
then October 13th is our official opening, our press night. The 14th, we're doing a national launch. So that day is going to be a fundraiser and a way for us to be able to really get some national attention on the piece. In hopes, that it goes somewhere big and, Broadway, like, and later
Yes,
on.
yes.
Love
That
that.
you claim it to be so.
Exactly, right. And then from then on, the show will be from October 15th to November 13th. You can find it at Stages Houston. So you can go to their website and get tickets, get them quickly because they're starting to sell out. We already have 2 or 3 nights that are completely sold out, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, it's just going to be a really great show. The great thing is, Fort Bend Academy for Arts and Dance is actually going to be doing some preludes. So they'll be out in the lobby. So you'll get a show before the show, then you get the show. It's going to be a really full night.
Wow. I'm looking forward to that. I got to figure out which night I'm going to come. More than one night. But
Yeah, bring a group.
yeah, well, that's what I know your mom, um, the group that we're in, we've been talking about it, trying to get the best night. And so it may be just so we have to all come at different times, but we're trying to kind of all come at one time. But First Met's going to be there. So,
And I
and,
appreciate it.
yes, definitely. And all of my Tea Talk audience, they're going to be there too. Because we really it's going to be a great show, number one. Number one, it's going to be super great. The subject matter and so forth is just going to be super important for us as women, as Black women, and with children that come in. So we're going to take this is something you can bring the children to too. Is there like the little girls? Is there a
Yeah,
age limit?
I would say if you're comfortable with your children hearing about drug use and
Okay,
domestic violence, then absolutely. We do not like depict any of it violently on stage. So it's
right.
nothing like that. But I do know, some people have hesitations around exposing their children to things. You know,
Right.
my 9-year-old daughter will be there, but we've had a lot of conversations leading up to it, you know, that are really unpacking a lot of the more mature themes in the piece.
Okay.
And so I just caution people, you know, under eighth grade, you know, about bringing their children, but I
Yeah.
think it's each individual person's decision. Yeah.
I'm glad I asked that question then, because that is something that as parents, you don't want to take them into something and be like, "Ooh, I didn't know
Yeah.
this part was going to be in here." You know, we were watching movies the other night with my grandchildren, and one little part came up. I'm like, why would they have to put that in there?
Yeah.
You know, and I was shocked, and didn't even have time to tell her to turn her head or close your eyes or whatever. It was
Yeah.
just thrown in there. So that's good to know. And so parents be aware of that, and use your own, discretion about whatever you would like to do, or either prepare your kids if you're going to bring them. Um, but that's good to know. So the tickets, you can go and find out the tickets on Stages, just stages.com or something like that.
It is Houston.
Stages Houston, okay. And then they will give you the price of tickets and the date availability and that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
so what else can you tell us about the production that we can expect that maybe I didn't ask you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest questions people have said is like, is it a musical? Is it a one-woman show? Is it a right? People want structure and I refuse to give it to them.
Okay.
Um, but I think, you know, we think of it as an intimate conversation with Lauren, where as she talks, her memories come to life, you know, and in dance, right? Her memories come to life in dance, because why wouldn't they be in dance, right? She's a dancer.
Definitely.
And so there are some absolutely stunning dancers in this piece.
Oh my,
Dakita Moore, who's our lead, actually has been in multiple Broadway productions. She's been in a few Tyler Perry movies. I mean, she's just phenomenal, phenomenal triple threat. And so it really is a whole show that I think you will really enjoy. I have to get used to bragging about it because I'm like, I don't want to sound braggadocious, but I'm really proud of this work. It's taken a
yeah.
long time and a lot of effort and a lot of prayer and a lot of self-discovery for me to get to a place where this piece could live. And I just want people to be able to enjoy it.
Well, we definitely going to enjoy. We're going to come and support and so forth. And, why not toot your own horn, especially when you know it's great. So, I mean, I forgot they say it's a something like a sad dog that won't bark for his own, something like that. They said, so you bark for your own parade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to believe in yourself. And I just really am just in it. I know your mom used to have us praying. My daughter's gonna be doing something big. I can't tell you anything about it. She said, it's something big. Y'all just pray for my daughter and da 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 da. And so she would say little things about that. And so this is what she was talking about.
Oh, this and a few other things, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have some other projects coming too.
So yeah, so tell us, but this was I know that's what this was, and you had another poem that she did let us finally read, I think it was, or something. But tell us about what else are you doing, something else besides this with all of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
going on?
I'm always doing something else. It's a problem. I've said I'm
Okay.
like too ambitious for my own good sometimes, but I think when God opens doors, you gotta just run through them. You
Gotta
gotta
be
figure out,
ready.
gotta just figure out how to do it later. So I'm working on an opera right now, that'll debut in May, with the American Lyric Theater, in New York, and I'm also getting ready for a book launch. I have a book that's coming out in March of next year, a couple other little smaller projects, and then we have an art exhibit that actually is connected to my book that will go up at Rice University at the end of October. So those things are kind of all bubbling in there together.
So you're working on that now. I got really excited because um, bragging on my grandbabies is she sings opera.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, so she's in New York. So I'm gonna have to go visit her for that
Yeah.
one. I'm sure she would love to come too and see it in New York. So we got to keep in touch about that date. You
Yeah.
have it confirmed already, or you?
I know around the time, it's right around Memorial Day, but they haven't given me exact dates yet. So
Yeah.
it's part of a residency that I'm part of. So it's different than just like a normal commission that would be a show that goes up. And so the residency is still kind of refining what days we do what and giving us that schedule. But the piece will be centered on the women who worked together to end the Montgomery bus boycott. And so a really good piece about Black history, a history that we don't normally hear. We normally get Rosa Parks, but we don't get all the other women that worked really, really hard to move the needle on progress and justice in this country. And so we want to really be able to celebrate them. It'll be a good show.
So you're, I know you said you had either a degree or some classes in Black history or African American history. Has that really kind of helped you have an appetite to develop some things more Afrocentric or historically
I mean,
telling?
yeah, I think my mom did that. I don't think that was the degree. The degree was when I entered college, my decision was I was going to have one degree that made me money and one degree that I did for myself. And so
Idea.
yeah, my English degree was to go to law school. My plan was to go to law school and become a lawyer, civil litigation. And so for me, I knew that English was kind of like for them, and the African American studies part was for me because I felt like in so much of my education, I didn't see myself represented. And I really wanted to learn, at what I felt was the greatest level in college, right? What I should have known all along. And so I think my desire started very young. My mom used to have books in our library that were on, historic Black figures, that were on like Cleopatra and how she was really Black, right? Like that were just on all these things that I didn't know and was able to dive into at a very early age. So she nurtured that, her and my father probably more than anyone else. And then growing up, I just realized the necessity of it, right? Is that we're constantly missing from TV shows, we're constantly missing from theater, we're constantly missing from literature. My God, so much from literature. And
Yeah.
so being able to really like push ourselves back into those spaces, that's something that my memoir that's coming out in March is really centered in is it's reclaiming modern day mythology, right? Of saying that if you look at the classic canon of mythology, it's Greek and it's Roman and it's white, right? But that like Black people can have mythology too, and that's a space we can explain ourselves and play through in order to give context to who we are and how we operate in this world.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you have a lot going in that wonderful brain of yours. And
It's
great.
a wild place.
Telling you, I was sitting here thinking about, I said, what must she have been like as a child, trying to keep up with and nurture and so forth like that. But you have mom and dad that they were on top of it, huh?
My dad used to say it'd have been a lot easier if you were a stupid child. He used to say that to me.
I'm serious. No, I can see, even as you're talking, your brain is like, I can just see it going like that, like, oh my goodness. So are your children picking this up as well?
Not picking up there, it's imputed in their souls. Like, yeah, no, they're definitely the same kind of people. My both of them are challenging at every level in the best and most beautiful ways. And so I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade them for the world. They're the perfect blend of my husband and I, but both of us were gifted kids who had wild imaginations and were very artistic and yeah, they're that's them too. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about that because I'm looking at children and parents. That a lot of people, that parents and grandparents that are watching, and so sometimes in African American families, this has been my finding with teaching children and African American children, uh, they're stifled in their creativity as don't ask questions, don't go this, don't do, don't talk, and so and then when I taught my white students, I noticed that parents were always encourage them to ask questions, da 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 da. So, can you see any behaviors that maybe African American kids could have that might be looked at as they're being, I don't want to say the word bad, or they're just troublesome kids, when in actuality, they could really be very, very gifted kids and who are really just can't slow their mind and their bodies down to quote unquote normal kids.
Yeah. No, I mean that was me. Totally, it was me. And I was definitely my brother as well, right? And it's definitely my kids. I think I wouldn't say bad, it's just I think it's bad as perspective, right? And it's subjective.
Yeah.
My son takes things apart. It drives me insane. He takes apart everything. He turns everything into a building block. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's a chair, if it's food. What did he build on? He built on my mom's meal. Like the other day, she had like a to-go box, and he
Uh-huh.
built all this stuff and knocked it all over. And she was like, I've never been so angry with him. And also, I can't really do anything because he was just building, right? Like he was just, I get it. You had to build a world. And so I think it's more about that of, we do ask why a lot. We do make space for a lot of questioning. We also say sometimes like, hey, we're a little tired of questioning and right now. And We need to get a question break. That's a real thing. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I'm big about also building the emotional skill set as well as the actual physical skill set, because I think a lot of times it's not that our kids don't have an imagination, but you haven't made the emotional space to fail, right? I'm really big on telling my kids that I'm gonna be on their team no matter what, that failure is part of the process, that you're not gonna get it right unless you fail a million times. And so just give yourself over to it. I was teaching my daughter to cook the other day and she's like, I don't want to get burned, mommy. And I was like, why? You're gonna get burned. Right? Like I think the more you accept that and move past it, the better you'll be at this. But pretending that the fear is not there is never going to get you where you want to be. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. Well, I just thought about that because I mean, I think there's creativity in every child. And when I taught school, one of the things that I taught because I was really preparing them a lot for taking their minds to the next level. And intentionally, I was doing that because I see so many times Black children, their minds get squashed into go watch TV, don't bother me, because kids want you to play with them or whatever. We really don't have time a lot of times. But one of the things that I would tell my children in the classroom is when they ask too many questions or when I was too busy or just kind of tired, I would say, I'd love to hear about that in a book. And I had a writing center,
Mhm.
and I would give them an opportunity to go and write about it or color about it and give me the gift, of writing that book. So they like, wow, I said, you're an author. You can go do that. So there's things that you can channel if you don't have time, because we have working mothers and things like that. Do you have any advice for working mothers, or how did you do them? I'm trying to keep it my time here too.
Yeah, no, I've always been a working mother. So, except for the pandemic, which I mean, I was still a working mom. We just all were sitting on top of each other and it was terrible. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it is just being intentional. I think, for every bit of work that I do, I try to be intentional about the amount of play. So last year I was in New York for 2 weeks for a long stint for my residency. When I returned, I made sure I built out a week vacation with my kids, even if that vacation was just going to the park every day, but being very present, to put my phone down, to be engaged, even if it was just watching them on the swings, right? To really like have time that I carve out that tell my kids I'm being full-time mom right now, right? It's full-time mom time. You have me as much as you want to, so use it up because mommy's gonna have to go back to part-time mom in a little bit because I have some things that I have to get done. And I think just really like communicating the expectation. A lot of times for me, it's like, hey, if you give mom 2 hours this morning, I'll give you 2 hours this afternoon, and we can go and get our nails done, or we can go and run to the park. Those kind of things, I think my kids have learned, like, okay, she's not saying no, she's just saying wait, and I can handle that. But I think
That's very good.
when we don't communicate where we can put the space where they belong, they start to feel like they don't belong anywhere. And that's never what we want our kids to feel.
Wow. Because that's why I was looking at is that you're so busy. How do you have time for your own kids? And that's another thing that people who are in professionals that, are really taking off and really requiring a lot of time. A lot of times, um, the kids will go lacking and then they end up um, off into some other things that they shouldn't be. But I think that's a very good point to talk to them and say, look, if you give me 20 minutes now or 30 minutes or whatever it is, I'll give you 30 minutes or whatever, or we can do something, go to the park, give them something, some alternatives there. So, well, that's really good. So the next part I wanted to ask you about was I've heard about all these wonderful things that you're doing, and I'm just amazed, and I'm really prayerful that you are obtaining as much as you're attaining, and I know God has great places for you. Where has God was this a God thing? Did you feel the presence of God helping you or guiding you, or who were the people who helped you um, besides your mom and dad? How did you were there times when you just felt like it's not gonna work?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
But
not like we're just all on high.
okay, because it seems like it's just all sugar here.
Yeah.
But were there times, and because you said a minute ago about your kids, about failing, you can never fail until you stop trying or something like that, you said. So as an adult in the position you're in, did you ever feel like you just wanted to just give up? It just wasn't gonna work?
Yeah, I have a couple stories come to mind immediately, but I'll go with my moving to Houston story, which is I guess the beginning of my Houston testimony. And so I'm not from Houston. I'm from California. I went to school in Michigan, and my plan was to go back to California. And God told me to move to Houston. I didn't have any family, no job, no friends, nothing. And I was like, nope, I ain't doing it. And I went back to California. Was like, I'm not going to Houston. That's silly, and was just bombarded with every reason to move to Houston. Every turn, everywhere I went, there was something that reminded me of Houston. Lane Bryant had a pant called the Houston, right? Wheel of Fortune had Houston Week, right? Like it's just like everywhere I went
Everybody
was
was
Houston.
happy.
You are
I was
not letting
telling you,
me go.
Houston, 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 huh?
It would be flashing signs, so I did the best that I could do in my limited, my limited humanness of lining up jobs and lining up places to live and all these things. And had my parents and my brother and sister drive me down. And uh every job, usually if I get a job interview, I pretty much have the job. I usually, can talk myself into the job. And
Right.
I got zero job offers and money diminished very quickly in holding a whole family down here. And my parents had to leave me in a hotel room with all my belongings and my car. And we didn't know how it was going to work out, and over the next few weeks, the little bit of money I had turned into even smaller amounts of money. And I really felt, I was like, God, you led me here, but you have just left me to myself, destitute in Houston with nobody to know. After about a week, I went to the hotel manager and told him I was going to have to leave. And he told me he would lower the rate of the room to let me stay and
Uh-huh.
cut it in half so I could stay, which was great for a few more days. And then I would return to him again. He was like, how about we hire you and you could work for the hotel so you could stay? Which I was like, my God, look at you. The day I went in to sign my paperwork, they sold the hotel from underneath him. So there was, I just was like, what are we doing, God? What are we doing? Right.
What are we doing?
I thought I saw the plan. We're not, this is not the plan at this point. And so the day that I decided I was going to live in my car, I checked out of the hotel. I put all my stuff in. I started scouting places to sleep at night that would be like removed from, public eyes. So that way people's eyes wouldn't be on me when I was trying to sleep, and thinking of places to wash up. And I was getting out of the car. I had enough money to either eat or get gas in my car. And I remember praying like, God, I am now down to nothing. Like I've exhausted my faith and I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And I opened the door to go to CC's Pizza because I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I was gonna wrap some pizza in some napkins and I was gonna eat on it for a few days. um,
Okay.
and as I opened the door, I got a phone call that offered me a job.
Wow. Wow.
And I just remember sobbing my eyes out. And the job paid $500 less than what I needed to qualify for my apartment. I was able to get another part-time job, so I was working two jobs. Um, but then my apartment wasn't ready, so I had 2 weeks. I was like, okay, I'm gonna live in my car for 2 weeks, and then I will, be able to afford everything I want. I can see a finish line. I'm fine.
Right.
And as I was settling in that evening to kind of like, hold up in the back of a Walmart parking lot, I got a phone call that a friend of a friend of a friend of my mom and dad's lived in Humble, and she told me if I could get to 1960 that she had a room for me. And a whole back bedroom set up for me and gave me a space to live, fed me, took care of me, just really nurtured me. And I'm just like so indebted to her and her son forever and ever. I still keep in contact with them. But it really was God just showing me like, I'm going to push you to your wildest limits and I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to stretch you, but I promise you, you're going to be strong enough to handle it. And I think from then on, there's been ups and downs. I've had a lot of things that have come in the way of what I was trying to do, a lot of rejection, a lot of personal devastation. But I think that because God kind of set the tone for me, right, that no matter how far we got out, he was still going to be on that branch with me. I was willing to stay and I was willing to stick it out and I was willing to just keep following. And I'm continuing to do that, right? It's a trial every day and it's a journey and a learning experience every day. But I just try to center myself in that and knowing that, I'm not out on any branch by myself.
Mm. Oh my God. I'm sitting here trying to fight back the tears. But I love it when you just said, I'm not out on a branch by myself.
Yeah.
God is always, I've been out there, but I wasn't by myself. God was with me all the time. And when I was talking earlier about the fact that people see the finished product. It's like the cake with the icing and the little stuff on it, but they don't know what you had to put in that cake and beat it up and whip it up, and you had to substitute this, and the cake didn't rise just right. So you put more icing on this side. My mom used to do that. She would put a whole lot on this side if it was slanted. People did not know that it was a big glob of icing on the other side because it didn't come out right. But her objective was to make that cake. And so you're saying you stay focused, and God was. That's what I kept hearing in my spirit, that God has been with you all along, and he's going to continue to be with you. And I'm just praying so much. And I'm asking other people here in your prayer time to pray for, I'm just seeing a miracle unfold before my eyes. I really am feeling it. I'm getting chills. Okay. But I just wanted you to know that I really feel that this particular moment, because God kept asking me, telling me, leading me, directing me toward that point to ask for it. And here's the deal. I'm glad that you shared that story, because that story is for somebody that's watching.
Yeah.
Somebody else, I really, we had a lady join our church one time, and she had a couple of kids. And it wasn't until a year later that she told me, she said, I lived on the parking lot in my car.
Wow.
I said, with your kids? She lived with her kids. And she said, First Met was my place, my safe place, where I knew nobody would bother me and my kids. And I had my little thing where I could go wash up over here at the thing and take the kids to school. I say to teachers all the time, because I'm a counselor, that when children come to school in disarray or smelling or whatever, help them, because you don't know what they had to do to get through. And you don't know if they were living in their car, if they're living wherever. But the reality is that we have to go through some struggles sometimes before we get to our wealthy place. But we're on our way. We got to stay focused and know that the Bible says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. So he is with you through the valley, and he'll be with you on the mountaintop, that he can get all the glory. And it made you a better person, I'm sure. Better.
Oh, sure. Definitely more empathetic, definitely more compassionate, But I also, we always talk about valleys and mountains, but mountains can be really scary. Being up on that cliff can also be really scary. And I often say that hope is one of the scariest things you can do, right? Because it opens you up for vulnerability, and it also opens you up for failure, right? Is that you're putting all your hope out there, and is that it'll work, and you want to be faithful, but sometimes it's like, Lord, help my unbelief,
Exactly. Well, one of the other things that I have talked to people about, or the people say, that there is when they're like going up the mountain like this, that they fear success.
Oh yeah, wildly, right here.
What if it blows up really big? That's have you ever thought about that?
Oh yeah.
A little fearful.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think where the fear of success enters for me is not, I'm afraid to be successful, but I'm afraid to maintain success, right? I'm afraid that I won't be able to maintain success. And then in doing so, will let people down because I can't maintain how amazing they thought I was. And that is something that can't be in my hands, right? Like I have to just create the work and do the things that I need to do and hope that people kind of stay on my train. And if they don't, I know there has to be a purpose in that too. So I'm learning to surrender that fear, right? And the more things that happen, the more success that comes. I'm learning to really give over to that. But it is a process every single day to not self-sabotage, to not talk myself out of it. I think of even with this situation with Lauren, I came to her because I had her put on my spirit, right? Like God put her in my heart. And she didn't really know me aside from seeing me perform a poem once. And I came to her and was like, can I write your life story? That sounds insane when you think about it that way. Yeah. And it took me like 3 weeks of not asking her and obsessing about it and wondering and questioning. I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I'm the right person. And I finally did it. And now look where we are. We're at a place where we're getting ready to do a national launch of a large production, probably the largest production I've ever had, the largest production Stages has ever done, right? One that ties the community together and has employed, dozens of people in creating this work and celebrating this person who like deserves all her flowers, but also like the community that raised her and supported her here in Houston. And had I just been disobedient in the ask, look how many different people's lives I would have, how many blessings I would have held up because I was unwilling to do the one part that I was asked to do, you know?
Wow, that's big. That's big because you had to make that first step, and people were there just waiting on you and to make it so they can make their step. And so now on to a national thing. This is unreal. And so then the part we didn't cover, and we do have a few more minutes, is the people that came to help you. You got this vision, but you got to take that first step out there and ask her, can I, can I? Then you go from the car to now you need all this money, all these resources, all these people. How did that come about? That must have been a scary thing.
Yeah, it started off with me pitching to almost every theater in Houston, right? One-on-ones to their artistic directors, to their new works people, to any contacts that I had that would help me get a conversation with someone else. And then that grew into Ebony Bell Darcy and I had a relationship because she was the assistant director on the first opera that I did with the Houston Grand Opera, Marian Song. And she's now in a position of being able to leverage that to gain access for people at stages. And so I sent her the script. And really, I was asking her more just like, can you read it? Can you give me some feedback?
Yeah.
Let me know if it's good, where I should go with it. And she really championed the work and just began like talking to people in stages and saying, this is a work I really want to champion and rally behind. And so she helped kind of get that ball in motion. And then once it was, they really started to realize what I wanted to do. And that wasn't easy either, right? When we got into the workshop, I think my choreographers didn't even understand what we were making until we were making it, right? And
Okay.
it didn't matter how many times I explained it, the vision was mine and it wasn't theirs, right? And so I think when you have a vision, sometimes you get frustrated when everybody else doesn't see it, but it's not everyone's vision, right? It's yours. And it's yours to walk out and to get them to see the parts they need to understand. And so I think once they took a step back and really saw what I wanted to create, then we saw, a surge of energy around the piece because now everyone kind of knew what we were doing and how we were making it. And that was like a delight to see everyone finally see the picture. It's like watching someone do one of those old 3D pictures that they back off of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that moment when they finally see it and everything clicks, it's something to be a steward and a shepherd and a servant to that moment and that reason as well.
Wow. I can see the light bulb finally went off. You're like, yeah, this is what I've been trying to get you
I've
out.
been trying to tell you.
Oh my God, are they going to ever get it? But that is really great. So now you'll be, after you get through with this production here, then the critics will come and see it, or you'll send out stuff and they'll come and say, can you do it here? Or
That's the hope, right? The hope is that we get a lot of interest. A lot of people have been invited that can make it move in a different way and out of Houston and, different stages. We'll see what God has in plan. I've told myself I can only do this part, right? I can do what's in front of me and I can do what's in front of me with excellence. And then beyond that, I have to absolve myself of the responsibility of the next part. The next part has to be between the efforts put on by the theater. My personal efforts are still there, but it's understanding where my control lies, right? And that I can control making the vision plain, and then I can allow God to let everyone see it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that common denominator that I keep hearing in my spirit is God is ordering your steps. And each step has to be done excellent with trusting God. You can't half do something because when you have to do something, say for instance, a person that God is going to put in your place with that connection, they would say, well, no, she really, now they've got this opportunity to connect you with where you need to be. But if you didn't do your other step with excellence when you were not where you wanted to be, then they won't recommend you or they won't connect or they won't speak up for you. So it sounds like to me you've made a lot of great connections and you impressed a lot of people with your integrity and your hard work and you're being focused. I'm going to do this and being excellent at whatever level you're at. I think a lot of times people want to be excellent only if it's the big stage with all the brand lights. So you haven't earned you haven't earned it yet. But I can say you definitely earned it.
Thank you. I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I feel like I have dues to pay, but I think It's just about faithfulness. You know, I had a friend tell me yesterday, you don't control the time in which God elevates you, and you just got to be okay and ready to go. And I'm working on that, you know.
Yeah, well, I can just feel in my spirit, just by interviewing you and just by feeling your spirit and hearing your story, that God is about to elevate you really, really, really beyond your imagination. And I can see that. So
Receive that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I will be praying for that, and the other ladies on here will be praying as well. So,
Thank you.
well, that's about it. Is there anything else I missed? You gave a shout out to your kids or
A shout out to my husband because he's
your husband?
definitely the only way that I can do all of this is having an amazing partner.
To
And then
say
I
that.
and then I would just say, you know, people get their tickets at Stages Houston for Plum Sugar. That's going to be between October 7th and November 13th. If you want to pre-order my book, it's called Black Chameleon, and pre-order links are available via my website, livelifedeep.com. And you can follow me on all social media channels at Live Life Deep. Yep, it's easy.
Okay, well, you got it in there, but I want to make sure we repeat it one more time because you went real fast. So
Yes.
your
So
website is
livelifedeep.com.
okay.
And our social media handles are at Live Life Deep. So that's for Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want to go to, that's where I am.
Okay.
And then Stages Houston is going to have information on Plum Sugar, which goes up October 7th through November 13th. And if you're interested in the Blank as a Myth exhibit, which goes up at Rice University, you can follow me on my website as well and get all that information.
Okay. So I think key thing is to follow you.
Yeah, follow me and go to my website. I
So
also have a
your website.
Patreon. If you're a person who wants to do back, you know, behind the scenes and exclusives, you could join my Patreon family and get, you know, early ticket deals and all those kind of things. Because I love being able to have that one-on-one connection with people who are interested in supporting my work.
Exactly. And so when they go on as a patron, that means they can go on and just support you with some financial gifts
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah. So you get anything from $5 a month to, you know, however much you want to give. And it gets you some behind the scenes footage. It gets you, you know, videos with Lauren. It gives you early announcements, early ticket deals, you know, all those kind of things. Yep.
Okay, we're about to do that. You know, I might be feeling like I'm having little favor there. Go on with the Patreon.
I
Well,
appreciate that.
thank you so much. You're a beautiful woman inside and out. And thank you for coming and sharing. We have learned a lot about you, about your work. We'll be praying for you and your work, and we will be there for Plum Sugar.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in the audience.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, our time is up for today. I know you were blessed. Why don't you share this on your Facebook page? Share with your friends, your family, anybody that you know. This is good information, and encourage them to also follow this young lady and support her through prayer and by being a patron. Okay. All right. Listen, so I'll see you next week at 3 for Tea with Lady O. Bye bye now.